Hi, good evening. Thank you for tuning in to the latest Hurricane Tracker app video update recorded Tuesday, August 23rd at 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Well, this will be our third video update, mainly focused on Invest 99L as it is becoming a threat to develop, and the computer models are starting to what appears to be figure out the track at least over the next 3, 4, or 5 days. We'll be taking a look at the potential. We also have Kay and Fiona, which are now remnant lows. We have Tropical Storm Gaston, which is forecasted to become a hurricane, likely to do that tomorrow. And that system is still forecasted to stay out in the open Atlantic. So here in the short term, we are watching Invest 99L, again located just to the east of the Lesser Antilles. Officially, the National Hurricane Center is giving the system a 50% chance of development during the next 2 days. And then through the next 5 days, mainly days 3, 4, and 5 from now, a high chance of, which is 70% chance that this system will develop into the next tropical cyclone, and it is expected to begin developing into a depression or tropical storm somewhere here on the western side of the National Hurricane Center's cone. Here at the Hurricane Tracker app, we think the development odds are just slightly higher, not too far off from the National Hurricane Center at 80%. But in looking at all the latest guidance, we have increased the chances of this system becoming a hurricane long term up to about 50-50. And since the name on this one could be a little tricky, we did want to point out that the pronunciation of this name from the National Hurricane Center is Hermine. So uh, I personally thought the H was silent, and that it was Hermine, so I'm glad that I did look that up. Here's the latest infrared satellite loop this evening of Invest 99L. You can see it's still disorganized. It doesn't quite have that classic tropical cyclone shape. You can see some vorticity on the southern side of the storm. That is the mid-level center. And then the stronger vorticity in the lower levels where a well more defined surface circulation could form over the next few days is on the northern side of the system. And this should become the main area of vorticity as it tracks just north of the islands over the next 2 to 3 days. All right, let's take a look at the latest global models. If you've been following along, we've had quite a battle between the American GFS model and the European model. Let's first start out with the GFS American model. You can see it keeps the system pretty weak through the next 2, 3, 4 days. But what is of note is that this is the first run of several over the last day or two where it's finally starting to show something. The last couple of days, it really hasn't shown much at the surface, and now we're seeing the model pick up on a surface low. Ignore the track into Texas. That's not a forecast. It's just a possibility. We will talk further about that here in just a moment. Now, if we take a look at the European model over here on the left side, you can see it has a little stronger depiction of the storm. Millibar 994 millibars before it crosses Florida on Sunday. Again, this is a forecast by the European model, not the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center. And you can see it is possible that the system could get into the Gulf of Mexico and strengthen even further. Um, I know some of you on Twitter have asked, you know, what are the peak winds this could reach once if it does get back over the Gulf of Mexico? And the honest answer is we don't know at this point. Intensity with tropical cyclones is one of the hardest things to forecast, and I would even argue that it's harder than the track forecast. But the European model is obviously exploding this into what seems to be Category 2, maybe even Category 3 hurricane. That it is, trying to figure out what the environment's like, and it is showing that the environment may very well be conducive for strengthening, especially over the Gulf of Mexico, where it's the warmest it's been in many many years. So it's just something we're going to keep an eye on, but we will deal with that later. Right now, we want to try to focus on when and if this system is going to develop, and if it does, where would it go? Here's a look at the latest 12Z European ensembles. Basically, what an ensemble is, of course, you have your European model. And then you have its ensembles, which is 52 different variations of that model, and they're each depicted by an L, area of low pressure here on the map. And the numbers above the L indicate the minimum barometric pressure at that time. So you can see we have these ensemble members spread out. We have some here near eastern Florida, even the Georgia coast. We have a couple a little bit further away from the Florida coast. We have one over here in the west central Gulf. We have one down by the Yucatan Peninsula. But what I want to focus on with this image and this run of the ensemble this afternoon is if you put a circle around all of these, I'm not going to say these are tightly clustered, but for being about 6, 7 days out, that's actually a fairly decent signal. And, a lot of times this far out, we'll see these lows spread out just all over the map, or there may be just a handful of them. But we have quite a few members out of the 52 that are showing a 1005 millibar or lower pressure system. So to me, this is a fairly strong signal, again, especially for 6 days out. Another development today, we looked at the GFS ensembles. Again, this is kind of averaging them all together here. But earlier this afternoon on the 12Z GEFS run, it wasn't really excited about development. Maybe just two or three that or depicting this system to be a possible depression. But if you take a look at the run 6 hours later, 18Z today, which was this evening, it's much more bullish, many more members showing up on the map, lowering pressures, definitely a stronger signal. So we're going to see if this trend continues with the GFS and the GEFS. As in this latest run, they have been trending more towards the European model, which has been consistent in showing development and strengthening over its past few runs. Another set of models, sorry, it's been a very long day. I had about 3 hours of sleep last night. The latest tropical models are in very good agreement that this invest will move towards the west-northwest. Pretty tightly clustered through here. It could be a little further north, could be a little further south if it were to get over Hispaniola. That could delay organization strengthening, which would be a good thing. But you can see they are pretty tightly clustered. We don't really see many members going off into the open Atlantic. Most of them are more towards the west-northwest. And you can see we have several that are now in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, generally pointed towards the north-central Gulf of Mexico. And again, we're going to discuss more about the possibilities here in the Gulf in just a moment. So what we do every 12 hours, we like to put together all of the data, real-time data, data from all the models, the models ensemble members, and really just put everything together into a percentage. We have a formula that we calculate this on, but what is the percent chance at this point based on what we know, and where would the storm track? What's the chances you could be impacted? Obviously, right now, the highest areas of possible impacts over the next 5 days are going to be in this region. Obviously 60% chance of being impacted. Puerto Rico, northeastern Lesser Antilles, as the system passes through tomorrow, bringing squally weather, possible tropical storm conditions, even if it's not a classified tropical storm. And then, of course, in the Bahamas right now, we have about a 55% chance, so that is on the increase. And for those of you watching from South Florida, as of right now, we see a 45% chance that this system could impact your area. Now, on the flip side of that, that also means there's a 55% chance that you will not be impacted. So there's still some uncertainty, even 6 days away, a little bit lower the further up the Florida coast you go. And we do have in the Gulf of Mexico, I think the further west you go in the Gulf, the lower the chances are that this system will go that far west, but it can't be ruled out. We have that area of high pressure here located over the Tennessee Valley, and it's strong enough and it sits in place long enough, yeah, I could see where this could drive further westward towards Texas. Again, that's not the most likely solution at this point, but again, that's a long-term forecast. Day 6 would be here, day 7, day 8. So we're going to be tracking this system for quite a long time, but the bottom line is if you're a resident or have interest anywhere from South Texas through the Gulf Coast, all the way in and around through Florida. I'd say up through southeastern Georgia, especially in the Bahamas as well. Keep a close eye on this system and check in often for the latest updates. We also like to issue our 5-day alert levels. We've issued elevated alert levels throughout portions of the Caribbean Sea as well as up through central and southern Florida. Elevated level simply means if you're in the possible path, make sure you develop a plan. You gather think about what supplies you would need and know how to execute that plan if any watches or warnings were issued for your area from the National Hurricane Center. We did put on the board today low to guarded levels for portions of the north central Gulf as well as northeastern Florida. And so we do think generally, as of right now, again, this is not a forecast. This is not gospel. This is just an outlook, and this will change. But right now, we think the system will track somewhere within this cone. Again, it could be further up to the north off the northeast Florida coast. Could be running through the Florida Straits. Could be running over western Cuba. And then once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, I'm going to put a big question mark there. That's too far out in the future to speculate. We can show you what the models are seeing right now for that, and we will in a moment. But again, that's just kind of too far out to really, draw on the map with any certainty. All right, so I'm going to get to some of your questions. Thank you so much for interacting with us on Twitter. We really appreciate all of our followers and the great questions that you guys sent in today. So, Mr. Atlanta, hey, I wonder if you're in Atlanta. That's where we're located. Hurricane Tracker app team. We're located here in Atlanta, Georgia, and you can see this is the GEFS ensemble. Each line is a different ensemble member predicting where they think the system would go. And what I wanted to clarify with this map is we have one as far west as southeast Texas and one into the Big Bend of Florida. That's a very wide cone, as it should be, for 7, 8, 9 days away. And I looked at some close-up high-resolution images, and for example, if this one here is correct, we could see 50 to 70 mile per hour winds here in Atlanta. So even if this comes in as a strong system, inland areas could also see some impacts. But Mr. Atlanta wants to know, is there a possibility that it gets into the Gulf and then turns back north and curve back east, maybe across the state of Florida? Absolutely. We do see a few GEFS members doing that. Some did the Panhandle, some did the Big Bend, some a little further west. Destiny, how badly is this going to affect Louisiana? Obviously, my heart goes out to you guys. You are recovering from some major, major floods, probably the worst natural disaster since Hurricane Sandy. This was not even a named system, and it was mostly ignored in the media. But, Louisiana's still in play. I'm not going to say that it's not. And until I see, all of these tightly clustered in one area or another, I can't say that, a certain region is ruled out. So if you're in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida Panhandle, you need to be paying as much attention to the system as those down here in South Florida and the Bahamas. And finally, Matt, where do y'all think the path will be that it will take once it's developed? Again, we kind of showed that back on our alert level map. If I can go back to it here, somewhere within this cone throughout the next 5 to 6 days. Beyond that, we're not going to really speculate or tell you what we think is going to happen because it's just subject to change. We can't really say with any certainty there. Finally, Kevin, he says, you guys are great, so much better than the local news or weather channel. If you've been a follower here or user of our app, we just try to keep it real. We don't try to hype things. We just want to put out the facts. And of course, we let you know that what we're showing is not a forecast. It's not gospel. But I think you guys deserve to know what these forecast models are saying, whether they're right or they're wrong. We want to put the information out there. We think information is key. You take that information, you use it to do what you need to do to keep you and your family safe. That's been our goal since we launched our app back in 2009. And we're so thankful that we're able to use our knowledge to give you guys great information. So thank you, Kevin, for that. That kind of made my day. We've been working really hard. Again, I slept 3 hours last night. Hopefully we'll get some more tonight. And again, the end goal is to keep you guys updated and make sure that if you're in the path of the storm, you have the information you need to stay safe. Again, sorry this video was long. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to have more to talk about over the next 7 days. I don't think this system is going to vanish by any means. Right now, we can just hope that this system tracks more west, crosses the mountains of Hispaniola, and kind of disrupts everything we just spoke about. But as you know, in the tropics, things are changing literally by the minute. Well, thank you for watching. If you're using the Hurricane Tracker app, we'll be back tomorrow, and have a great evening.